The bouquet was wilting in his hands, petals drooping like a heart too heavy to hold itself up. Ethan Carter stood outside the faded green door of apartment 4B, his pulse hammering louder than the city noise below. He'd never been this nervous, not even during his first gallery showing, because this wasn't just flowers. It was a confession. Ethan, a 24-year-old artist with paint-stained fingers and dreams bigger than his Brooklyn studio, had spent weeks sketching Sarah's smile in his notebook. She worked at the coffee shop around the corner, her laughter bright enough to cut through the grayest New York mornings. He'd sent her these flowers anonymously, of course, with a note that read, "Your smile lights up my canvas." Now, standing at her door, he was ready to admit they were from him. His palms sweated against the cellophane wrap as he knocked. The door creaked open, but it wasn't Sarah. A guy stood there, lean and tall, with dark curls falling into hazel eyes that sized Ethan up in a heartbeat. "You selling something?" the guy asked, voice low, a hint of amusement curling his lips. "No. I'm here for Sarah," Ethan stammered, clutching the flowers tighter. "I'm Ethan. I sent these." He held up the bouquet like evidence. The guy's brows lifted, and he leaned against the doorframe, crossing his arms. "Sarah's not here. I'm Lucas, her roommate." His gaze flicked to the flowers, then back to Ethan, sharp and curious. "You're the mystery flower guy. Huh. Bold move. But those roses are looking a little sad." Ethan's cheeks burned. "They were fine this morning," he muttered, glancing at the drooping petals. He felt exposed, like one of his half-finished sketches laid bare. Lucas's stare didn't help. It was too direct, too knowing, like he could see right through Ethan's nervous bravado. "Come in," Lucas said, stepping aside. "She'll be back in an hour. You can wait, or I can tell her you stopped by." Ethan hesitated, then stepped into the apartment. It was small but warm, with mismatched furniture, a stack of vinyl records, and a faint smell of lavender. A sketchbook lay open on the coffee table, filled with intricate pencil drawings of cityscapes. Ethan's eyes lingered on them, his artist's heart catching on the precision of the lines. "You draw?" he asked, nodding toward the sketchbook. Lucas followed his gaze, then shrugged, a little guarded. "Yeah, just a hobby." "You?" "Kind of my whole life," Ethan said, a shy grin breaking through. "I'm a painter. Oils, mostly. Trying to get my work into galleries." Lucas's expression softened. "Just a fraction. That's cool. Takes guts to chase that." He gestured to the couch. "Sit. Want coffee?" Ethan nodded, settling onto the worn cushions. As Lucas moved to the kitchen, Ethan couldn't help but notice the way he carried himself, confident but not cocky, with a quiet intensity that made the room feel smaller. The flowers sat awkwardly in Ethan's lap, a reminder of why he was here. But as Lucas handed him a steaming mug, their fingers brushed, and Ethan's heart did a strange, unexpected flip. They talked first about art, then music, then the chaos of New York. Lucas was 25, a grad student studying urban planning, with a dry sense of humor and a knack for asking questions that made Ethan feel seen. Not just noticed, seen. Like Lucas was tracing the edges of his soul with every word. An hour passed too quickly. When Sarah's key turned in the lock, Ethan's stomach twisted. He stood, clutching the flowers, ready to confess. Sarah burst in, all energy and golden hair, her smile as radiant as he'd remembered. Ethan. Oh my God. Are those for me? She asked, spotting the bouquet. Yeah, he said, voice catching. I sent them. I've been wanting to tell you. They're beautiful. Sarah cut in, taking the flowers with a grin. You're so sweet. But, I'm kind of seeing someone. Her tone was gentle, but the words landed like a punch. Ethan's face fell, though he tried to hide it. Oh. Right. No. That's cool, he said, forcing a smile. I just wanted you to know. Lucas, leaning against the counter, watched the exchange with an unreadable expression. Sarah hugged Ethan, oblivious to the weight of the moment, and promised to catch up soon. As Ethan turned to leave, Lucas called out, Hey, artist. You ever show your work around here? Ethan paused, meeting Lucas's gaze. There's a gallery thing next week. Small venue, but I've got a few pieces in it. Send me the details, Lucas said, pulling out his phone. I might swing by. Ethan nodded, heart still stinging but oddly lighter. He left the apartment, the city's hum swallowing his footsteps. He didn't know it yet, but that moment, the one where Lucas's eyes held his a second too long, was the spark that would change everything. Over the next few days, Ethan threw himself into his paintings, trying to shake off the rejection. Sarah was dating someone. Fine. He'd move on. But Lucas's number, now saved in his phone, felt like a loose thread he couldn't stop tugging. They texted casual at first, about art shows and coffee spots, but soon it was daily. Lucas's messages were sharp, funny, and always left Ethan wanting more. The gallery night arrived, a low-key event in a Williamsburg loft. Ethan's paintings hung on exposed brick walls, vibrant oils capturing city life in bold strokes. He stood by his work, nervous, scanning the crowd. When Lucas walked in, wearing a leather jacket and a half-smile, Ethan's breath caught. Lucas didn't just look at the painting, she studied them, asking questions about Ethan's process, his inspirations. No one had ever looked at his work like that, like it mattered. You've got something real here, Lucas said, standing in front of a canvas of a rain-soaked street. It's raw, honest. Ethan's chest warmed. Thanks. Means a lot. They grabbed drinks after, wandering into a dive bar with sticky floors and neon lights. Conversation flowed like whiskey smooth, then burning. Lucas talked about growing up in a small Ohio town, where being openly bi meant dodging whispers and worse. Ethan shared his own story, how he'd known he was gay since high school, but kept it quiet, painting his truth instead of speaking it. You ever feel like you're hiding in your art? Lucas asked, leaning closer, his voice low over the bar's noise. Ethan swallowed, caught off guard. Maybe. It's easier to put it on a canvas than say it out loud. Lucas's eyes held his, steady and searching. You don't have to hide with me. The words hung between them, heavy with possibility. Ethan's heart raced, not from nerves this time, but from something deeper, something he wasn't ready to name. As they left the bar, the city lights blurring around them, Lucas's hand brushed his again. This time, neither pulled away. The autumn air was crisp, carrying the scent of wet leaves and diesel as Ethan and Lucas walked side by side through Brooklyn. Their hands brushed again, and Ethan felt a jolt, like static electricity, but warmer, more alive. He stole a glance at Lucas, whose profile was sharp against the streetlights, his expression unreadable but soft. You didn't have to walk me home, Ethan said, shoving his hands into his jacket pockets to keep from doing something reckless, like reaching for Lucas's hand. Lucas shrugged, a small smile tugging at his lips. Wanted to. Besides, you're not getting rid of me that easily. Ethan laughed, the sound easing the tension in his chest. They stopped at a crosswalk, the city pulsing around them, honking cabs. Distant laughter. The hum of life. Lucas turned to him, his hazel eyes catching the glow of a neon sign. You're different, Ethan. Not like most people I meet. Different how? Ethan asked, his voice quieter than he meant. Lucas tilted his head, like he was weighing his words. You feel things deeply. I can see it in your paintings, in the way you talk. It's rare. Ethan's throat tightened. He wasn't used to being seen like this. Not by anyone. His family back in Vermont had always called his sensitivity a weakness, something to toughen up. But Lucas said it like it was a gift. Before he could respond, the light changed, and they crossed the street, their shoulders brushing. Back at Ethan's tiny studio apartment, they lingered outside the door. The air felt charged, like the moment before a storm. Lucas leaned against the brick wall, his gaze steady. You gonna invite me up? Or am I just supposed to stand here looking cool? Ethan grinned, nerves and excitement tangling in his gut. You're already failing at the cool part, he teased, unlocking the door. Come on. Inside, the apartment was a mess of canvases, paint tubes, and half-empty coffee cups. Ethan apologized, but Lucas waved it off, drawn to a painting in progressa vibrant swirl of blues and golds. A figure caught in motion. This is you, isn't it? Lucas asked, pointing to the figure. Not literally, but it's how you see yourself. Ethan froze, stunned. No one had ever read his work so instinctively. Yeah, he admitted, voice soft. It's about feeling stuck, but still moving, trying to find where I fit. Lucas nodded, his expression thoughtful. I get that. Growing up, I never fit anywhere. Too queer for the jocks. Too small town for the city kids when I got here. You learn to carve out your own space. They sat on the floor, backs against the couch, sharing a beer Ethan found in the fridge. The conversation turned raw, unguarded. Lucas talked about his first Crushaw boy in high school who'd laughed in his face when he'd confessed. Ethan shared how he'd painted over his own pain, hiding his truth from his conservative parents. The room felt smaller, the space between them shrinking with every word. When Lucas's knee bumped Ethan's, neither moved away. Ethan's heart pounded, loud enough he was sure Lucas could hear it. I'm glad you came to the gallery, he said, barely above a whisper. Lucas turned, their faces inches apart. I'm glad you sent those flowers, even if they were for Sarah. Ethan laughed, but it caught in his throat as Lucas's hand found his, fingers intertwining. The touch was electric, grounding, terrifying. Ethan had never done this, never let himself want this so openly. But Lucas's eyes held no judgment, only warmth. And Ethan leaned in, closing the gap. Their first kiss was tentative, then hungry, like they'd both been starving for it. Ethan's hands found Lucas's face, his fingers tracing the line of his jaw. Lucas pulled him closer, and for a moment, the world outside the apartment didn't exist. No rejection, no fear, just them. The next morning, Ethan woke to sunlight streaming through his window. Lucas still asleep beside him, curls messy against the pillow. Panic hit first had he moved too fast. But Lucas stirred, blinking up at him with a sleepy smile. And the fear melted. "Morning, artist," Lucas murmured, voice rough with sleep. They spent the day together, wandering the city, sharing stories and silences that felt just as intimate. But doubt crept into Ethan's mind. He'd fallen for Sarah so easily, only to crash. What if this was another mistake? Lucas was confident, magnetic, but Ethan couldn't shake the fear of being hurt again. That evening, they met Sarah for drinks at a rooftop bar. She was thrilled to see them, oblivious to the shift between them. "You two are cute together," she teased, sipping her cocktail. "Ethan, you should paint Lucas sometime." Ethan flushed, but Lucas just grinned, slinging an arm around Ethan's shoulders. "He's already got me in his head." "Right, Ethan." The words were light, but they landed heavy. Ethan wanted to believe in this whatever it was, but the weight of his own insecurities lingered. As they left the bar, Lucas stopped him under a street lamp. "You're quiet. What's going on?" Ethan hesitated, then let it spill. "I don't know how to do this. I've never let myself feel this much. What if it falls apart?" Lucas's expression softened, but his voice was firm. "It might. But you don't get to the good stuff without risking the fall. I'm in this. Ethan, are you?" Ethan looked into Lucas's eyes, seeing the same vulnerability he felt mirrored back. He nodded, throat tight. "Yeah, I'm in." They kissed again, slower this time, the city fading into the background. Ethan didn't know where this would lead, but for the first time, he wasn't afraid to find out. Weeks turned into months, and Ethan's world began to orbit Lucas. Their days were a blur of shared moments, late-night talks in Ethan's studio, sketching sessions where Lucas's pencil danced across paper, and quiet mornings tangled in bedsheets. Ethan's paintings grew bolder, infused with the colors of his feelings, vibrant reds, deep blues, the gold of Lucas's laugh. But love, even one this bright, wasn't simple. Ethan's insecurities lingered like shadows. He'd catch himself wondering if Lucas, with his sharp wit and easy charm, could really stay with someone like him, someone still figuring himself out. Lucas, for his part, carried his own baggage. He'd grown up in a town where being bi meant being invisible, and even in New York, he sometimes braced for judgment. One chilly November evening, they attended a gallery opening where one of Ethan's paintings was featured. The crowd was small but enthusiastic, and Ethan felt a rare surge of pride as strangers admired his work. Lucas stood beside him, a steady presence, but Ethan noticed him tense when a group of art critics lingered nearby, their whispers sharp with pretension. "Everything okay?" Ethan asked, touching Lucas's arm. Lucas forced a smile. "Yeah, just. Crowds like this make me feel like an outsider sometimes. Like I don't belong in your world." Ethan's heart sank. "You're not an outsider. You're the reason I'm even here tonight." Lucas looked at him, eyes softening, but the doubt didn't fully fade. Later, as they walked home through the frost-kissed streets, Lucas admitted, "I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like you'll wake up one day and realize I'm not enough." Ethan stopped, grabbing Lucas's hand. "You're more than enough. You're everything." The words felt raw, too big for the moment, but Ethan meant them. Lucas's smile was small but real, and they held on to each other, the cold air no match for the warmth between them. But life wasn't just late-night confessions and stolen kisses. Ethan's art career was gaining traction, but it came with pressure deadlines, critiques, the constant hustle of selling himself. Lucas, deep in his grad program, was buried in research papers and group projects. Their time together shrank, squeezed between schedules that never aligned. One night, Ethan came home to find Lucas asleep on his couch, a textbook open on his chest. The sight should have been sweet, but it stirred a quiet fear. What if they were drifting? What if love wasn't enough to hold them together? The tension broke a week later, during a rare night out. They'd gone to a queer bar in the village, the kind with pulsing music and a crowd that felt like a celebration of every color of the rainbow. Ethan was laughing, a little tipsy, when a guy approached Lucas, all charm and confidence. Ethan watched, his stomach twisting, as Lucas smiled politely but firmly turned the guy down. "You okay?" Lucas asked later, noticing Ethan's silence on the subway ride home. Ethan shrugged, staring at his shoes. "That guy? He seemed like your type. Confident. Put together." Lucas raised an eyebrow, then laughed, sharp and incredulous. "My type? Ethan, my type is you. Messy. Brilliant. Paint on your jeans, you." Ethan's cheeks burned, but the words didn't erase the doubt. I keep thinking you'll find someone better. Someone who's not a mess." Lucas stopped him, right there on the platform, his hands on Ethan's shoulders. "Listen to me. I don't want better. I want you. But you've got to trust me, or this won't work." The words hit hard. Ethan nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. He wanted to trust, wanted to believe in this love that felt like a masterpiece in progress. But trust, he was learning, was harder than painting a perfect stroke. They spent the holidays together. A quiet Christmas in Ethan's apartment with a lopsided tree and takeout Chinese. Lucas gave Ethan a leather-bound sketchbook, the kind Ethan had always wanted but never bought for himself. Ethan, in turn, gave Lucas a small Paintinga cityscape with two figures in the foreground, their hands almost touching. "It's us," Ethan said, shyly. Lucas's eyes shone as he hung it on his wall, right above his desk. For a while, things felt steady. But love, like art, was never static. Ethan's next gallery show was a big one, a chance to catch the eye of a major curator. The pressure was crushing, and he threw himself into his work, spending nights in his studio, paint smudging his skin. Lucas tried to be supportive, but Ethan could feel the distance growing, a crack in their foundation. One evening, Lucas showed up at the studio, his face tight with frustration. "You're shutting me out. Ethan, I get that this show is huge, but I'm right here, and you're acting like I'm not." Ethan set down his brush, guilt twisting in his chest. "I'm not trying to. I need this to be perfect." Lucas stepped closer, his voice softening but firm. "It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to be perfect. Just let me in." Ethan wanted to God. He wanted Tobit. The fear of failing, of losing Lucas or his dreams, kept him locked inside himself. They stood there, inches apart but feeling miles away, the weight of unspoken words pressing down. The gallery show was a triumph, but it didn't feel like one. Ethan's paintings glowed under the lights, and the curatora sharp-eyed woman named Claudia praised his raw emotional depth. Strangers shook his hand. Collectors asked for his card. But Ethan's eyes kept darting to the crowd, searching for Lucas. He hadn't shown up. They'd fought the night before. A quiet, cutting argument that left Ethan sleepless. Lucas had asked for more time. More openness in Ethan, stretched thin by deadlines, had snapped. "I'm doing this for us," he'd said, voice sharp. Lucas's reply still echoed, "It doesn't feel like us anymore." Now, standing in the packed gallery, Ethan felt hollow. Success was supposed to be sweet. But without Lucas, it was just noise. He texted him, a simple "You coming?" No response. By the time the night ended, Ethan was alone, the buzz of champagne and compliments fading into a dull ache. He went to Lucas's apartment the next morning, heart in his throat. Sarah answered, her face softening when she saw him. "He's in his room," she said, stepping aside. "Go easy on him." "Okay." Lucas was at his desk, sketching, his back to the door. The room was a mess, papers scattered, coffee cups piling up. Ethan cleared his throat. "Hey." Lucas turned, his expression guarded. "Heard your show was a hit." "Congrats." "Thanks," Ethan said, shifting awkwardly. "You didn't come." Lucas set down his pencil, his jaw tight. "I needed space. You've been so caught up in your world, Ethan. I don't know where I fit anymore." The words stung, but Ethan couldn't argue. He'd been distant, consumed by his art, thinking it was the only way to prove himself. "I'm sorry," he said, voice breaking. "I didn't mean to push you away. I'm just scared. Scared I'll mess this up. Scared I'm not enough for you." Lucas's eyes softened, but his voice stayed firm. "You don't get to decide what's enough for me. I chose you, Ethan. But I need you to choose me back, not just when it's easy." Ethan stepped closer, his hands shaking. "I do choose you. I'm trying. I know I've been an idiot. But I love you. Lucas. I love you." The words hung in the air, raw and unpolished. Lucas's breath hitched. And for a moment, Ethan thought he'd ruined everything. Then Lucas stood, closing the distance between them, and pulled Ethan into a fierce hug. "You're such a dumbass," Lucas murmured against his shoulder. But there was no venom in it. They spent the day talking. Really talking. For the first time in weeks. Ethan admitted how his fear of failure had bled into their relationship. How he'd been trying to prove himself worthy of Lucas's love. Lucas confessed his own fears of being left behind, of not measuring up to Ethan's rising star. It wasn't a perfect fix, but it was a start. Over the next few weeks, they worked to rebuild. Ethan made time for Lucas, even when his schedule screamed. Lucas showed up to Ethan's studio, sketching beside him in companionable silence. They learned each other's rhythms, the push and pull of love in a world that didn't always make space for it. But the world had its own plans. Ethan got a call from Claudia, the curator, offering him a solo show in a prestigious Manhattan gallery. It was the kind of opportunity artists dreamed of, but it meant months of grueling work. Ethan hesitated, glancing at Lucas, who was sprawled on his couch, reading. "What's up?" Lucas asked, catching his look. Ethan told him about the offer, his voice cautious. "It's huge. But I don't want to lose us again." Lucas sat up, his expression serious. "Take it. You're not losing me. We'll figure it out together." Ethan felt a rush of relief, but the fear lingered. He nodded, squeezing Lucas's hand. "Together." The months that followed were a whirlwind. Ethan painted like his life depended on it. Each stroke a prayer for success. For balance. Lucas was there. Steady as ever. Bringing coffee to late-night sessions. Critiquing Ethan's work with an artist's eye. But the pressure was relentless. And cracks began to show again. One night, Ethan snapped at Lucas over something small, a misplaced brush. A spilled cup. Lucas didn't yell back. He just left. The door clicking shut behind him. Ethan stood in the empty studio, paint smearing his hands, and realized he'd pushed too far. He grabbed his jacket and ran after Lucas, the city blurring around him. He found Lucas on a park bench, staring at the skyline, his breath visible in the cold air. "I'm sorry," Ethan said, sitting beside him. "I'm screwing this up again." Lucas didn't look at him. "I love you, Ethan, but I can't keep being your punching bag when you're stressed. I need you to figure out how to handle this without shutting me out." Ethan nodded, his chest tight. "I'm trying. I promise I'm trying." Lucas finally turned, his eyes searching Ethan's. "Try harder." They sat in silence, the city humming around them. Ethan reached for Lucas's hand, and this time, Lucas let him take it. It wasn't a solution, but it was a step. And in that moment, under the cold stars, Ethan knew he'd fight for this for them no matter how hard it got. Spring brought new colors to Ethan's canvas, but his relationship with Lucas felt like a painting stuck in progress. They were trying, God. They were trying, but the weight of Ethan's upcoming solo show pressed down on them both. Every late night in the studio, every missed dinner, felt like a small betrayal. Lucas never said it, but Ethan saw it in the way his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. One afternoon, Ethan found Lucas at a coffee shop, sketching in his journal. The sight of him head bent, curls falling over his forehead made Ethan's heart ache. He slid into the seat across from him, setting down 2 coffees. "Truce?" he asked, pushing one toward Lucas. Lucas looked up, his expression softening. "You're gonna have to do better than coffee, artist." Ethan grinned, but it was tentative. "I know I've been a mess. This show, it's eating me alive. But I don't want it to eat us." Lucas closed his journal, leaning back. "Then let me help. You don't have to do this alone." It was a simple offer, but it shifted something in Ethan. That night, he invited Lucas to the studio, not just to watch, but to create with him. They worked side by side, Ethan painting, Lucas sketching, their silence filled with a quiet understanding. Lucas's drawing cityscapes with a raw, human edge inspired Ethan's next piece. A vibrant mural of New York's heartbeat, 2 figures woven into its chaos. The collaboration became their lifeline. Lucas started spending more time in the studio, his presence grounding Ethan. They'd talk for hours. About art, dreams, the future. Lucas admitted he wanted to design cities that felt human, inclusive, alive. Ethan confessed he dreamed of a life where his art and love could coexist, not compete. But the world outside their bubble wasn't always kind. One evening, they went to a queer art event in Chelsea, a celebration of voices too often silenced. Ethan felt proud, his arm around Lucas. Their connection a quiet rebellion against a world that sometimes stared too long. But as they left, a group of guys shouted slurs from across the street, their voices sharp and ugly. Ethan froze, his old fears rushing back, memories of high school, of hiding who he was. Lucas tightened his grip on Ethan's hand. "Ignore them," he said, voice steady. They don't get to define us. Ethan nodded, but the words lingered, a reminder of the world's edges. Back at Lucas's apartment, he admitted, "Sometimes I feel like I'll never be brave enough for this. For us." Lucas cupped his face, his touch gentle but firm. "You're braver than you think. You're here, with me. That's enough." The solo show loomed closer, and Ethan poured everything into Ithis' love. His fear, his hope. Lucas was there every step, hanging paintings, tweaking lighting, even charming Claudia into extending the show's run. The night of the opening, the gallery was packed, a sea of faces buzzing with anticipation. Ethan's paintings told a story of love, of struggle, of two souls finding each other in a city that never slowed down. Lucas stood by his side, his presence a quiet anchor. As the crowd thinned, Claudia pulled Ethan aside. "You've got something special," she said. "There's a gallery in San Francisco interested in your work. They want you to visit. Maybe set up a residency." Ethan's heart leapt, then sank. San Francisco was a dream, but it was across the country. He glanced at Lucas, who was talking to a guest, oblivious to the bombshell. That night, in the quiet of Ethan's apartment, he told Lucas about the offer. Lucas's face was unreadable. "That's huge. Ethan, you have to go." "But what about us?" Ethan asked, his voice small. "I can't lose you." Lucas took his hand, his grip steady. "You're not losing me. We'll make it work. Long distance. Visits. Whatever it takes." Ethan wanted to believe him, but the fear was a knot in his chest. They fell asleep holding each other, the future a question mark neither could answer. The next morning, Ethan woke to find Lucas gone. A note on the pillow, "Needed to clear my head. I'm proud of you." Panic gripped Ethan. He called, texted, but Lucas didn't answer. Hours later, Lucas showed up at the studio, his eyes red-rimmed. "Where were you?" Ethan asked, his voice breaking. Lucas sighed, running a hand through his curls. "I needed to think. This San Francisco thing. It's your dream, Ethan. But I'm scared too. Scared of being left behind." Ethan pulled him close, their foreheads touching. "I'm not leaving you. We'll figure it out. Together." Lucas nodded, but the doubt in his eyes lingered. They spent the day in the studio, painting and sketching, trying to hold on to the magic that had brought them together. But the offer hung over them, a shadow neither could shake. Ethan stood at the edge of a decision, his heart split between love and ambition. The San Francisco offer was a siren calla chance to cement his name in the art world, to paint on a bigger canvas. But every time he imagined it, he saw Lucas's face, the quiet fear in his eyes, and the thought of leaving him felt like tearing out a piece of his soul. They tried to keep things normal. Weekends were spent exploring the city, stealing kisses in Central Park, laughing over cheap pizza. But the unspoken question lingered, could their love survive the distance? Ethan started researching flights, cost of living, anything to make San Francisco feel less like a betrayal. Lucas, meanwhile, threw himself into his studies, his sketches growing darker, more jagged. One night, they went to a concert in a cramped Brooklyn venue, the music loud enough to drown out their worries. They danced, bodies pressed close, sweat and laughter mixing. For a few hours, it was just them. No deadlines, no offers, no fears. But as they stumbled into the cool night air, Lucas's smile faded. You're gonna take it, aren't you? He asked, voice quiet. Ethan stopped, the city's pulse fading into the background. I don't know yet. I want to. But not if it means losing you. Lucas looked away, his jaw tight. I don't want to hold you back. Ethan, you deserve this. You're not holding me back, Ethan said, grabbing his hand. You're the reason I'm even this far. I need you to believe that. Lucas's eyes met his, raw and searching. I'm trying. But I've been left before. It's hard to trust this won't end the same way. The words cut deep. Ethan pulled Lucas into a hug, holding him tight, as if he could anchor them both. I'm not going anywhere without you, he whispered. But even as he said it, he wasn't sure how to make it true. They decided to visit San Francisco together, a weekend trip to test the waters. The city was vibrant, alive with color and possibility. Ethan met the gallery owners, toured their space, and felt the pull of a new chapter. Lucas was quieter, taking in the hills, the fog, the way the light hit the bay. At night, in their tiny hotel room, they lay together, the future pressing in. What do you think? Ethan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lucas traced circles on Ethan's arm. It's beautiful. You'd thrive here. But I don't know if I can. Ethan's heart sank. Lucas's life, his grad program, his friends, his roots was in New York. Uprooting him felt selfish, but staying felt like giving up. They fell asleep without answers, their hands still entwined. Back in New York, the tension grew. Ethan's paintings for the San Francisco show were coming together, each one infused with his love for Lucas, his fear of losing him. Lucas started spending more time at his apartment, citing schoolwork. But Ethan felt the distance. One night, he showed up at Lucas's place unannounced, his heart pounding. Sarah let him in, her expression worried. He's been off, she said. Talk to him. Lucas was on the fire escape, sketching the skyline. Ethan climbed out, sitting beside him. You're pulling away, he said, voice soft but firm. Talk to me. Lucas set down his pencil, his hands shaking. I'm scared, Ethan. Scared you'll go and forget me. Scared I'll follow you and lose myself. Ethan took his hand, his own eyes stinging. I'm not forgetting you. I love you, Lucas. I want a life with you, wherever that is. Lucas looked at him, tears brimming. I love you too. But I need time to figure out what I can give up. They sat there, the city sprawling below, their future a fragile thread. Ethan didn't push, didn't demand answers. He just held Lucas's hand, letting the silence speak for them. The next week, Ethan made a decision. He called Claudia and asked to delay the San Francisco residency for 6 months, giving him time to finish Lucas's grad program with him in New York. When he told Lucas, the relief in his eyes was palpable, but so was the guilt. You didn't have to do that, Lucas said, voice thick. I wanted to, Ethan replied. You're worth it. They spent the summer rebuilding, stronger this time. Ethan's paintings grew richer, Lucas's sketches brighter. They talked about the future, not just San Francisco, but a life together, wherever it led. But the world, as always, had other plans. Summer in New York was a fever dream, humid nights, street festivals, and the constant hum of possibility. Ethan and Lucas found their rhythm again, their love a quiet rebellion against the chaos. They'd picnic in Prospect Park, sketch the skyline from rooftops, and steal kisses in crowded subway cars. But beneath the surface, the San Francisco question loomed, a deadline ticking closer. Ethan's paintings for the residency were nearly complete, each one a love letter to Lucas, to their city, to the life they were building. Lucas was finishing his thesis, his urban planning projects infused with a passion for inclusivity that made Ethan proud. They were growing, together and apart, and it felt like they might actually make it. Then came the call that changed everything. Ethan's mother, back in Vermont, had fallen ill, a stroke, sudden and severe. Ethan flew home, leaving Lucas with a promise to call. The hospital was sterile, cold, nothing like the vibrant world he'd built with Lucas. His mother, always distant, now seemed fragile, her words slurred but sharp with regret. "I should have supported you more," she said, gripping his hand. "Your art, your life. I was wrong." Ethan's throat tightened. He'd spent years hiding his truth from her, painting over the pain of her disapproval. Now, her words cracked something open in him. He told her about Lucas, about the love that had reshaped his world. To his surprise, she listened, her eyes soft. "Bring him to meet me," she said, "when I'm better." Back in New York, Ethan told Lucas everything, the words spilling out in a rush. Lucas held him, letting him cry, letting him heal. "I'll come with you," Lucas said, "whenever you're ready." The trip to Vermont was quiet. The rolling green hills a stark contrast to New York's concrete. Ethan's mother was home, recovering, and her welcome was cautious but warm. Lucas charmed her with his humor, his sketches, his quiet strength. Watching them talk, Ethan felt a weight lift. Wasn't just building a life with Lucas. He was bridging his past and future. But the visit wasn't all healing. Ethan's father, still gruff and distant, cornered him one night. "You're throwing away your career for this lifestyle?" he asked, voice low but cutting. Ethan's chest burned, but he stood tall. "I'm not throwing anything away. I'm choosing what matters. Lucas matters." His father walked away, silent, and Ethan knew some gaps might never close. But Lucas was there, his hand steady in Ethan's. And that was enough. Back in New York, the San Francisco residency was weeks away. Ethan and Lucas made a plan. Ethan would go for 6 months. Lucas would visit when he could, and they'd reassess after. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. They spent their last weeks together soaking up the city, dancing in queer bars, painting murals in Ethan's studio, laughing until their sides hurt. The night before Ethan's flight, they sat on Lucas's fire escape, the skyline glittering below. "I'm gonna miss you," Ethan said, his voice thick. Lucas leaned against him, his warmth grounding. "You're not getting rid of me that easy. I'll be there in a month. Promise." They kissed, slow and deep, the city their witness. Ethan wanted to freeze the moment, to paint it into eternity. But life, like art, kept moving. San Francisco was everything Ethan had dreamed: vibrant, open, alive. The gallery was a dream space, and his paintings drew crowds. But every night, in his tiny rented room, he felt the ache of Lucas's absence. They video called, texted, sent sketches back and forth. But it wasn't the same. Lucas's thesis was consuming him, and their calls grew shorter, their silences heavier. One night, Lucas's call was different. His voice was tight, his eyes tired. "I got an offer," he said. "A job in Chicago. Urban planning. Exactly what I've been working toward." Ethan's heart stopped. Chicago wasn't San Francisco. It wasn't New York. "That's amazing," he said, forcing a smile. "What are you gonna do?" Lucas sighed, rubbing his face. "I don't know. It's a dream job. But you're my dream too." The words were a lifeline, but they didn't erase the distance. Ethan lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if love could stretch this far. He wanted Lucas to chase his dreams, but the thought of losing him was a knife in his chest. Ethan's San Francisco days were a blur of paint and longing. His residency was a success, his paintings selling faster than he could create them. But every brushstroke carried Lucas's absence, a quiet ache that no gallery could soothe. Their calls grew sporadic, life pulling them in different directions. Lucas in New York, wrestling with the Chicago offer. Ethan chasing his art in a city that felt half empty without him. One evening, Ethan sat in his studio, staring at a blank canvas. He'd tried to paint Lucas from memory, but the lines felt wrong, incomplete. His phone buzzed a text from Lucas. "Can we talk in person?" Ethan's heart leapt. Lucas was coming to San Francisco. He arrived a week later, stepping off the plane with tired eyes and a nervous smile. Ethan ran to him, pulling him into a hug that felt like coming home. They spent the day wandering the city, hand in hand, the Golden Gate Bridge a backdrop to their quiet reconnection. At a cliffside overlook, with the Pacific crashing below, Lucas finally spoke. "I turned down Chicago," he said, his voice steady but heavy. "It was a great job, but it wasn't us. I want to be where you are, Ethan." Ethan's breath caught. "You didn't have to do that. I'd never ask you to give up your dreams." Lucas smiled, soft and certain. "You're not asking. I'm choosing. I can design cities anywhere, but I can't build a life without you." Tears pricked Ethan's eyes as he pulled Lucas close, their lips meeting in a kiss that tasted of salt and promise. They spent the weekend dreaming aloud about a future in San Francisco, a shared apartment, a life where art and love intertwined. But love, they'd learned, was a work in progress. Back in New York, Lucas wrapped up his grad program, while Ethan extended his residency. They navigated long distance with stubborn hope, daily calls, care packages, sketches sent across miles. When Lucas finally moved to San Francisco, carrying a suitcase and his sketchbook, Ethan felt his world snap into focus. They found a tiny apartment in the Mission, walls covered with their art, shelves stuffed with books and vinyls. Life wasn't perfect, money was tight. Doubts still crept in, but they faced it together. Ethan's paintings grew bolder, Lucas's designs more visionary, each feeding the other's dreams. One spring evening, 2 years after that first bouquet of wilting roses, Ethan took Lucas to the rooftop of their building. The city sparkled below, a canvas of light. Ethan's hands shook as he pulled out a small box, a simple silver ring inside. "I sent flowers to a girl once," he said, voice trembling. "But you're the one who changed my life. Marry me, Lucas." Lucas's laugh was half a sob as he nodded, pulling Ethan into a kiss. "You're such a sap," he murmured, slipping the ring on. "But yeah, I'll marry you." Their wedding was small, on a hill overlooking the bay, with Sarah as their witness, her smile as bright as ever. Ethan's mother was there, frail but beaming, her acceptance a quiet miracle. The vows were simple, raw, a promise to choose each other, no matter what. Years later, Ethan would paint that moment, the two of them, hands clasped, the city behind them. The painting hung in their home, a reminder of the journey, from a bouquet meant for someone else to a love that became their everything. They'd faced fear, doubt, and a world that didn't always understand. But they'd built something unbreakable. And in the end, that was the masterpiece that mattered most.